Hey there, YouTube. It's PD Two Finger. When I see this type of comment, I will typically respond, and I see it fairly often. Now, I could go on at this point and choose to talk about the actual debate. Germanium versus silicon, tube versus solid state, digital versus analog, vinyl versus MP3. That's not what I want to do so much. Although I think I should address that there is so much potential, so many reasons why this has become what it's become. People that will always take the side of germanium, tube, analog, this type of thing. And the reasons are, there are many, many, many reasons. But there's also the other side of it, is that for the people who are making these statements who never really had analog or a tube amp or a germanium fuzz, they don't know about all the noise, about the quirks, about how you had to maintain, how much longer it took you to work in the case of a tape deck. So there's a real lot of I guess I would just call it the emperor's new clothes syndrome, where you have people who've brainwashed themselves into thinking that they were born too late and they missed the good old days, when right now is the good old days. We as musicians should just be doing somersaults for all of the different color palettes we have to choose from when we work, and we're not stuck with just tape. And we have so many different DAWs and so much software and plugins and all this stuff that in the beginning, digital made a lot of promises that it couldn't back up. And I think a lot of people are still sore about that. People who spent money, and then you have the fact that all of the preset stuff that the units were loaded with were really bad. And you could do a lot better if you figured out how to go in and custom program stuff. You know, you have people that they say, well, I bought the 8-track, I bought the LP, I bought the cassette, and then I bought the CD, and guess what? The CD sounded the worst out of all of them. Because you had pressings, remasterings that were just really bad. But then, you know, as I mentioned earlier, take a listen to the Dire Straits song, any song off of that Brothers in Arms album, which was Sony's digital studio. That was the first all digital recording. And it sounds incredible. It sounds fantastic. And you'll find that there's all these different releases and pressings and remasterings. Find what is the best sounding version of this album that I love. Do yourself a favor that way. So you take the good with the bad, and with the good, with the information, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of bandwagon jumping people who really have no idea. Like classic example, I'm on this tape channel. It's about reel-to-reel tape machines, multi-track. I had 2 8-track, it's equivalent of 16 half-inch DBX noise reduction, slaved to a SMPTE with a analog Mackie 1604 VLZ board. And you know, I'll tell you, those recordings do have this mojo to them. It's perceivable. But now there's plugins that can get you about 95-98%. And when you consider the amount of energy and time consumed of rewinding and fast forwarding and punching in versus doing it digitally, I will gladly sacrifice that 2% and go the route of the digital. So for many times for me, these experiences, I feel I'm unable to really comment on it in public. Because as soon as I do, I'll have someone bringing up that they're better than me because they don't use a multi-effect, they use a tube. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not so much talking about that PD feels, his opinion is that, and I shouldn't do that third person, excuse me, but I feel that digital is superior to tape or vinyl, or that I feel that silicon beats germanium every time, or that solid state beats tube every time, because it doesn't, okay? I'm here to tell you my opinion is this: there's good and bad in all of this stuff. And so the reason I'm carrying this torch is because what I'm seeing is a mean negative spirit in the comments. It's something directing towards, I'm older, I have more experience, you young kids don't know what I know. It's an evil, anytime I see something of where someone's putting themselves above someone else, I've been the brunt of that a lot in my life, a real lot. I still am. I still get treated like that by my family. And it hurts. And when I see that about what I really love, which is this tools used to make music, to make rock and roll, for some reason it really lights a fire under me, and maybe that's why I'm making this video today. But I wanted to let you know my view on it, that this is all kind of subjective, like how I hear everyone's senses and how they interpret them. That's just their own individual subjective experience. It's just like how you might not like ginger ale and I love it, or you love broccoli, spinach, cauliflower, and I have a gag reflex against it. So everyone's different. So when I see these comments where someone is blanket statement, just, you know, the only gear that's any good is what's on my pedal board right now, and everything else is effing garbage. This is what I'm on about, okay? So maybe I can have the wherewithal to stop when I see these comments and quickly make a video and share with you guys. Maybe you guys can consider taking the trip that I'm suggesting here, going through these articles, educating yourself, learning what is the truth. Because the truth, what the truth you will find is nothing is really better than, one really isn't better than the other. They both have their pros and cons, and to put yourself in this position where you're saying, well, I know what's the best, and all the rest of you don't. That's a really selfish, close-minded, ignorant place to be. And that's why it's difficult for me to come out in public and go, hey, I'm excited about doing this, I'm doing this and this and this, and then someone will pop up and say, well, the tube amp will always sound better. To correct you, the tube amp would sound different, because it's not always better. Okay? Tube breakup is not a desirable tone for me. It really isn't. A little bit of it, yeah, is excellent. But that all tube distortion, I'm not crazy about it. As a matter of fact, I really don't care for it. So, and it also depends. When you look at some of these circuits, their gain stage in the preamp is a TLO72 op amp with a pair of 3mm LEDs. So there goes your all analog tube fantasy, you know. Oh, excuse me, that would be all analog. It's complicated, and I'm not making excuses for digital, except to say that in the past there was a lot of garbage. There was a lot. They made a lot of promises they couldn't keep, but now it's gotten to the point where it can emulate a lot of that analog and tube stuff and give you enough of that flavor. The harsh, cold vocals sound like ice cubes, like Neil Young said. Yeah, maybe back in the day, and even with the Class D amps, they've gotten so much better. From where I'm standing, we should really be thankful and embrace the fact that we have so many choices and make the wise ones for ourselves, because really at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that we're productive. And for me, that means writing basic rockish guitar instrumentals. But if for you that means playing in your cover band, well, fantastic. That's what you do. Although I'm not going to come to your channel and watch the videos and say you did a good job, because that's not my thing. As a matter of fact, I really don't care for that. So at the same time, I don't understand why I'm seeing all these people carrying the flag for analog, going to digital stuff and commenting. For me, at that point, then we have a problem. Whenever I see somebody putting themselves over somebody else. And I think the other side of it is there's a lot of people that are just talking out of their ass. People that never had any of this gear, but they act like they do. They act like they have a tube amp. And just because that's the end all be all when you're on the internet. If you want to be the king, you got to have the analog, you got to have the tape, you got to have the tube. You can't have the digital. And that's just simply not reality. It's unpolished. I was on a tape channel, and there was a guy who made a comment, like a regular commenter, and he said, hey, we need to have some t-shirts printed up that say, it's 15 IPS or hit the highway. And I thought, gee, that's a pretty strong statement. 15 IPS is a speed at which the tape would travel versus 30. And 30 is a much higher fidelity. But anyway, I clicked on this guy, and because 99 times out of 100, this channel has no content. Anyway, he was the 1% that makes the rule. He had some videos, and on his thing, he listed his gear. This is what I have. And the first thing, Focusrite Scarlett 2, which is a digital interface. So he's recording all of his music into the computer, but when he's on the Tape Guys channel, he's pretending like, hey buddy, I'm in your club with you. I have a tape rig too. And he didn't. And that's just one example of when I see this stuff, I will take a look at the guy's channel. When I see somebody making a really asinine, ignorant comment, I look. And I'm looking forward to bringing you more of these types of videos. Hopefully I won't rant this long. It's up to you to make up your own mind what works for you. Okay? Don't ever listen to anybody who comes at you with the only good circuits are the ones that are on my board right now, and everything else is effing garbage. Because there's a lot of guys out there who do that. There's a lot of guys out there who do that. If somebody recommends something to you, the first thing you do is say, is that what you're using right now? What did you use before, and what's the difference, and why do you like it better? And see what on the market competes with it, and then ask that guy, hey, have you tried this? Because no, the answer is no, or they will just lie to you. And this is a psychological game people play. I have no idea why people do this. These are people that they're not honest with themselves. They lie to themselves and believe it. So it's an unfortunate, horrific side of my reality, seeing this type of gear bigotry that exists. It's just, and everybody goes along with it. Please check out the links that I had to share for you guys, and peace.